Hi, everyone. Good morning. It's great to see so many familiar faces in this room. It is my absolute pleasure to present to you today a piece of transformational and foundational infrastructure that is really designed to bring all of you, and I'm really looking at the biggest institutions in this room, on-chain. Now, why are we developing another blockchain? There's quite a few of them out there already. We are intimately familiar with that. So it's a great question to ask. Well, when we set out to build the Ondo GM platform, we really set out to build something that could combine the best of both traditional finance with its incredible deep liquidity and investor protections with all the benefits of DeFi, with its open access and innovation and new primitives. However, as we set out on this mission, we realized that the necessary conditions to really bring these two worlds together really did not exist. The infrastructure to bring these two together really was not present. We ran into a variety of issues, many of which I think will sound pretty familiar to the people in this room. First and foremost, securities don't really work that well with DeFi. DeFi was not designed with securities in mind, right? Stuff like stock splits or even dividend payouts. The smart contract accounting really cannot handle those issues very well. We had experienced this with our own assets, OUSG and USDY, but as we were thinking about scaling our own footprint to literally thousands of assets, we realized that the status quo just couldn't work, right? We needed a new ecosystem focused on RWAs, more on that later. Second, cross-chain asset management and managing the liquidity between all of those different blockchains, it's quite challenging. At this point, it's pretty clear that the future of crypto will be Omnichain. But issuing your assets on each chain in a compliant way and managing the liquidity between these various blockchains, that takes quite a lot of time. OUSG and USDY are live on 10 different chains. We have a full team of blockchain developers and ops people that manage that around the clock. Again, when you're thinking about scaling to literally thousands of assets, it just doesn't work. Third, and this one does not receive nearly as much attention as I personally think it should, inadequate security and cost. Running your network security and other critical components, even like oracles, powered by a cryptocurrency token that is incredibly volatile, that's actually a pretty expensive way of doing things and not necessarily the best security robustness that you want. This may be fine when you're dealing with cryptocurrencies on-chain that are in and of itself incredibly volatile. But when you're thinking about scaling literally tens of billions of real-world assets on-chain, that's not the best security model. Institutional-grade on-chain capital markets really do require a more stable and robust security model. And last but not least, the lack of institutional participation. I'm sure that one sounds very familiar to a lot of the people in this room. And there's very good reasons for that, right? Typically related to regulatory and compliance reasons. But it does make that there currently is not a very tight coupling between on-chain and off-chain environments. And that ultimately significantly degrades the investor experience that's possible on-chain. Now, allow me to illustrate that last point in a little bit more detail. Imagine the Ondo GM experience that could be if you actually had a broker-dealer powering the on-chain economy and being able to participate in the on-chain economy. When an investor would like to purchase a security, they would simply declare their intent on-chain. A broker-dealer would pick up on that intent, go and acquire that security in one of the traditional exchange venues with incredible deep liquidity, mint the asset on-chain, but probably not stop there. On an ongoing basis, this broker-dealer would publish the asset prices on-chain, just like they do in traditional finance, and post a proof of reserves on-chain. They could do all of that significantly cheaper than what exists today and with better investor protections. So we ultimately realized that that really is the Ondo GM experience that we want and that our investors deserve. But it clearly requires institutions to come on-chain and create a much more tighter coupling between on-chain and off-chain environments. As such, we realized that in order to build Ondo GM in the way that we want, and in the way that investors deserve, and in a way that scales, most importantly, we needed to create an environment that institutions can actually run. and with it, create the underlying infrastructure that so many in this room have been waiting for all the years that I have known you. Enter the Ondo Chain, a fundamental rethink of how institutions can participate on-chain and how RWAs can be scaled on-chain. The Ondo Chain combines the best of public permissionless blockchains with private permissions chains while addressing the issues that I mentioned previously. Some of the core features that it will have are, number one, real-world assets as a gas token and staking collateral. This one's a big one. This means that the Ondo Chain will enable the staking of high-quality liquid assets, real-world assets, and a little bit of crypto, but mostly real-world assets. The network will be proof of stake, but powered by real-world assets. This means that the network security of the Ondo Chain will be much less volatile than other crypto networks, and the associated cost to run the chain will be significantly less. This also means that you as an institution can participate and run a node just with the assets that you're already holding on balance sheet. But this way, you may be even to earn additional yield on them. This also means that you as an institution can actually run a node without ever having to touch crypto. I'm sure that will make some people in your compliance and accounting department extraordinarily happy. Finally, gas fees are going to be paid with real-world assets as well, ultimately just providing for a better user experience and investor experience. Secondly, the Ondo Chain will be run by a permission validator set. This means that only known and reputable and often regulated institutions will be allowed to run a validator. This also means that when you as an investor come on-chain, you can rest assured that your transactions are not going to be front-run, and you can enjoy similar protections like you do in traditional finance. And last but not least, vote extensions. The validator set of the Ondo Chain is not just going to validate transactions. They are also going to do other critical functions like publish the prices of an asset on-chain, verify the collateral that is backing on-chain securities on an ongoing basis, and sign off on bridging transactions whenever they're requested. By designing the Ondo Chain this way, we enable it to do, or we achieve, a few things. First and foremost, it can support a much more cost-effective and scalable investor experience for real-world assets on-chain. The Ondo Chain effectively eliminates the need to pay for and assume security risks of different providers of chain security, Oracle security, asset security, and bridging security. The Ondo validator set will take all of this on. And fundamentally, when you think about it, when you're dealing with a real-world asset, as opposed to a cryptocurrency, your underlying trust assumptions are already incredibly different. The Ondo Chain just builds on these different trust assumptions and aggregates a lot of those critical functions that you find on the blockchain all into the Ondo validator set. By doing this, it allows RWAs to come on-chain in a much more scalable and cost-effective manner. We can also support critical actions like the minting of an asset on-chain when the security has been purchased off-chain with significantly lower latency. Second, the Ondo Chain enables RWAs to be truly omnichain for the first time. It will be the first blockchain to connect both into public blockchains as well as traditional TradFi environments. As a result, the Ondo Chain is really built to be a distribution hub. You can issue your asset on the Ondo Chain, connect it into your TradFi environment to service it, bridge it to any other public blockchain that you want, while still managing your assets across all the chains from one spot. Developers, similarly, will be able to build their applications on the Ondo Chain and seamlessly connect into other public blockchain networks, but also TradFi environments to ultimately optimize liquidity in their own applications. Last but not least, the Ondo Chain will catalyze a new ecosystem focused on real-world assets and DeFi. This ecosystem will allow for concentrated innovation to happen both for protocols, but also at the wallet level to really invest and optimize the user experience for financial services and RWAs on-chain. For the first time, it's also going to be possible for real-world assets to have the same utility, liquidity, and performance as traditional assets in other channels. Historically, this has never been possible in other ecosystems. By innovating into the design of the chain itself, for the very first time, RWAs are going to be able to tap into crypto-native primitives such as staking. This will open up the door to new products and innovations and sources of additional yield that can even be passed on to traditional investors. With that, we're incredibly confident that the launch of the Ondo Chain will be a pivotal moment in the evolution of on-chain finance and bringing financial services on-chain. For the very first time, developers are going to be able to attack so many different financial primitives, whether that's margin, repo, swaps, staking, robo-advisory, prediction markets, wealth advisory more broadly, but do it across crypto and securities and real-world assets, all on one chain. I'm personally incredibly excited to see what a global group of developers and the types of innovation that they're going to be able to drive to really upgrade our system and innovate in a meaningful way on how financial services are done 24/7 globally. But make no mistake, this will be a long process. Even with the right infrastructure, bringing institutions on-chain, it's going to take time. A lot of you in this room will require different regulatory guidance before you can actually do that. We're aware of it, but I am personally very confident that when you decide to do so, we will have made the infrastructure that makes that process as seamless as possible. And I am very confident in making that statement because the Ondo Chain is not developed just by Ondo itself. We're incredibly fortunate to be advised in the design of the Ondo Chain by many of the logos on this screen. A special thank you for those of you who have already joined us in our mission and have committed to helping us in the design of the chain to make sure that it meets the requirements of all the institutions in this room. And for those of you who are still on the fence, come join us. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you.